Betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers. It creeps in wearing familiar faces, hugging you with hands that already reached for someone else. And by the time you hear the truth, it's already crushed the breath out of your chest. The photo slipped from his coat pocket like a verdict I hadn't been prepared for. It wasn't just any picture. It was one of those old-school Polaroids, the kind that develops right before your eyes, layer by layer, like a slow-burning truth. I remember standing there, hands shaking as I picked it up from the floor of our bedroom. At first, the image didn't register. Then, like being hit by a freight train, it became clear. Two bodies tangled together, passion laced with betrayal, sealed within the glossy frame of that small photo. I recognized my husband, Ethan, instantly. The shape of his back, the tiny scar near his shoulder blade I'd kissed countless times over our 8 years of marriage. But the woman, her face was turned away, hair cascading forward in a way I would later realize wasn't accidental. Something about her felt unnervingly familiar. I froze in our master bedroom, the same one we'd repainted together last summer, teasing over whether driftwood gray or morning fog fit our duvet best. Now those same walls seemed to press in on me, their brightness feeling like mockery. "Nina, I'm home early," Ethan's voice called from downstairs, just as the sound of his keys clinked into the ceramic bowl I'd made at that pottery class he gave me for my 31st birthday, the one he forgot until his sister reminded him. I tucked the photo into my pocket and inhaled deeply 3 times. I'd always been the calm one, the voice of reason, the fixer in a house of chaos. But something primal was surfacing inside me, something raw and loud. Instead of yelling, I put on lipstick and went down the stairs. "Hey, you." He smiled, the left dimple flashing, the same one that caught my heart at my cousin's wedding. Was he always this good of a liar? "I was thinking we could do takeout tonight, maybe from that Thai place you love," he offered casually. I nodded, watching his face for any break in character, any sign that he was living a second life. "Sounds perfect," I replied, matching his tone though my chest thundered so loudly I thought it would shake the walls. That night, I stared at him as he slept, the rise and fall of his chest so steady, so at ease. His face was tranquil, guilt nowhere to be found. How could he sleep like this next to someone he had betrayed so completely? I didn't confront him, not yet. Something inside warned me this wasn't just a meaningless fling. The figure in that photo haunted me. There was something painfully familiar in the tilt of her neck, the fall of her hair. Over the next 3 weeks, I became someone I didn't know. Checking Ethan's phone while he showered, trailing him during late-night meetings, examining receipts for hotels and restaurants I'd never been to. I found a second phone, jewelry I'd never received, and hints of a perfume that wasn't mine on his button-ups. But what truly unraveled me were the texts. Unlocked when I guessed the password, the date of our wedding anniversary. The irony was suffocating. The messages revealed more than sex. They were filled with inside jokes, morning greetings, shared plans. This wasn't just an affair. It was emotional, maybe even something deeper than what he shared with me. Messages about plans for the future. This wasn't just about the physical. It was emotional. Maybe even something more than what Ethan and I had. Her name never appeared in the messages, just my love, or occasionally just S. One message talked about shared childhood memories, which immediately struck me as odd. Ethan didn't grow up here. He'd moved to Denver for college and stayed. All his childhood friends were still back in Portland. Then came the message that shattered everything. "Can't wait for family dinner Sunday. Pretending around her gets harder each time." Family dinner. My family dinner. The monthly tradition at my parents' house that Ethan had attended for years. The other woman wasn't just someone I might have seen in passing. She was someone I knew, someone related. A chill surged through me, sharp and merciless. My skin prickled as if the very air had turned against me. A weight, heavy and suffocating, pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. The realization froze my blood. My phone slipped from my hand as my brain spiraled through names. My cousin Julia, my Aunt Meredith who'd recently divorced, or maybe my brother's new wife. Each name I considered brought a fresh wave of nausea, like I was peeling back layers of normalcy only to find rot underneath. I thought I'd known heartbreak, but this was layered betrayal served with a smile at my family table. I wasn't just dealing with infidelity, I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into the gut-wrenching chasm of betrayal from someone I grew up with. Someone whose birthday I never forgot, whose secrets I once guarded like my own. That night, I lay awake, mind racing, putting pieces together, preparing, because if there's one thing I learned growing up as the second of 5 kids, it's that you don't just get angry. You get strategic. Sunday dinner arrived with gut-wrenching slowness. I spent the morning curled over the toilet, purging anxiety. Then I layered on concealer, foundation, mascara, masking the toll of sleepless nights. Ethan seemed strangely upbeat, changing his shirt 3 times before landing on the slate blue one I'd bought him last Christmas. "You look amazing," he said, kissing my cheek as we pulled into my parents' driveway. I wondered if he kissed her the same way, casually, like it meant nothing. My mom greeted us with her usual warm hug, scented with gardenia, her signature. "Nina, sweetheart, and Ethan, come in, everyone's already here." Everyone. The word echoed in my head like a foghorn. I scanned the living room, watching for signs, prolonged eye contact, a shared smirk, anything. My older brother Jackson and his wife Mallory were on the couch, their twin boys playing nearby. Dad was deep in political debate with Uncle Harris. My younger brother Caleb was setting the table with his fiancée. And then there was my youngest sister Zoe. 25 to my 33, the golden child of the family. Quirky, artistic, effortlessly charming. She had returned from Florence just 3 months ago, fresh from her art residency. 3 months ago. The same time Ethan's late meetings began. She embraced me warmly. "Nina, I've missed you so much. We have to catch up soon." I hugged her back, woodenly, eyes flicking over her shoulder just in time to catch Ethan stepping into the room. His eyes lingered on her, not long, just a second, but long enough. I knew, the sister I defended from high school bullies, the sister I helped with her college essays, the sister I wired money to when she was broke and lost in Italy, the sister I had always cheered on, even when she outshone me in every family moment. Throughout dinner, I watched them, the unnatural distance, the avoidance of direct conversation, the rehearsed indifference. But I noticed now, the heat that rose to Zoe's cheeks when Ethan reached across the table for the salt shaker, the way his fingers grazed her wrist when handing her the breadbasket. "Nina, you're awfully quiet tonight," my mom noted, passing me another helping of pot roast I had no desire to eat. "Everything okay with the new position?" "Everything's fine," I lied, as Ethan's hand slid under the table to squeeze my knee. A touch that once gave me comfort now made my skin crawl. "Just tired from work," I added quickly. Zoe chimed in, of course. "Nina's always been a workhorse. Remember when she skipped her own graduation party to finish that marketing pitch?" She laughed and tossed her hair, the same hair I now recognized from the photo. She had always been the reliable one, the focused one. I was the responsible one. She was the charming one, the creative one, the one who stole what wasn't hers just because she wanted it. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom and spotted Zoe's purse on the counter. Was this a violation of privacy? Or a tactical investigation? I chose the latter. My fingers moved with purpose, unlocking her phone using the same code she'd used since we were kids, our dog Buddy's birthday. And there it was. Hundreds of texts with Ethan, pictures that made me nauseous, promises and plans. "I've never felt this way before," Ethan had typed. "It's like you understand parts of me Nina never could. We're meant to be together." And Zoe, my sister, had replied, "But we have to be careful until we figure out how to tell her. She's so sensitive." Sensitive. "You know how she gets," she wrote, like I was an unpredictable problem they needed to control, as if my reaction to betrayal needed managing. The final dagger? A message from just the day before. What if we just ran away and started over? Nina would move on eventually. She's always been strong like that. Strong. That was their excuse. They were preparing to wreck my life and sleep peacefully because they believed I was strong enough to take it. I felt my breath catch as if someone had punched me square in the chest. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from rage so dense it pulsed in my ears. The very people I had loved the most, trusted the most, had turned my loyalty into a liability. They wore my love like armor while they stabbed me from behind. I snapped photos of the conversation, my hands trembling so violently I had to steady them against the sink. Then came the knock. "Nina? You okay in there?" Zoe's voice, soft and full of concern. The same voice that once cried in my lap over her first heartbreak. The voice that once told me through tears that sisters were forever, that blood meant everything. "Be right out," I replied, amazed by how steady my voice sounded as my world collapsed inside me. When I stepped out, she hugged me, actually hugged me. Her arms wrapped around me with a familiarity that now felt foreign, invasive even. I wanted to scream, to shove her away, to ask how she could touch me with hands still warm from betrayal. "You really do look exhausted, sis," she said. "You should take a break. Maybe go somewhere and recharge." I stared into her eyes, nearly identical to mine, and saw no remorse, no guilt, just the smooth, practiced empathy of someone who had rehearsed this moment. On the drive home, Ethan asked, "Want to grab some ice cream?" It was a tradition, one I usually loved. "No," I said, feigning a headache. He turned up the radio. Some cheesy pop song about eternal love filled the silence, and he hummed along like nothing had changed. I gave everything to them. I whispered it to myself as I stared out the window, watching the streetlights blur past, and they tossed me aside like I was nothing. That night, while Ethan slept soundly next to me, I sat alone in our home office and started making a list, not of what I had lost, but of what I was about to reclaim. My dignity, my power, my life. If they wanted to call me strong, then strong is exactly what they would get. People often think revenge is a hot, reckless burst, an explosion of pain and rage. They're wrong. Real revenge is cold, it's calculated, it's patient. It doesn't just aim to hurt, it aims to teach. And I was about to become the most thorough teacher Ethan and Zoe had ever known. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day I was Nina, the dutiful wife. I cooked Ethan's favorite meals, asked about his workload, even initiated intimacy that left me hollow inside. But it was all part of the cover. Because by night, when he drifted off to sleep, I became Nina the tactician. There were nights when I lay in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far. The duplicity, the smiles that weren't real, the forced affection, it chipped at my spirit. I hated pretending, hated letting him touch me, even more than I hated him. There were flashes of doubt, whispers in my head asking if I was becoming as deceitful as they were. But each time I reminded myself, this wasn't cruelty for the sake of vengeance. It was survival. I started with surveillance. I needed to map the full extent of their deception. During one dinner, I quietly installed a tracking app on his phone. Later, I planted a tiny recorder inside his car, hidden inside a pine-scented air freshener. I even hired a private investigator, paid discreetly from a secondary account Ethan didn't know existed. He had no idea what I was uncovering. And what I found was far more twisted than I'd imagined. Their affair hadn't started 3 months ago. It had been going on for over a year, right around the time I'd taken a leave from work to care for my mother after her surgery. During that time, Ethan had been supporting Zoe through her Florence fellowship, which, surprise, never happened. My parents had unknowingly covered her living expenses. She'd been living with Ethan the whole time, in a furnished apartment across town. Whenever I left for business trips, they played house behind my back. The deceit was intricate, masterfully woven. The two people I trusted most had choreographed an elaborate charade around me. When I sensed something was off and brought it up, Ethan told me I was paranoid and should consider seeing someone. When I confided in Zoe about how distant Ethan had become, she gently suggested I focus on myself for a bit. All the while, they were manipulating me, twisting my instincts until I no longer trusted my own judgment. But here's what they didn't know. I've always been detail-oriented. They thought I was emotional, naive. They forgot I'm the one who managed our household investments, who negotiated our mortgage, who balanced our taxes. I had digital copies of everything. Every document, every legal form, every bank record, archived and backed up. Now those organizational habits served a new purpose. I found that Ethan had been slowly siphoning money from our joint account into a secondary one, likely planning for their future. Luckily for me, I had maintained my own private accounts over the years, ones he didn't know existed. Quietly, I transferred my inheritance and half of our joint funds into them. I wasn't stealing, I was protecting what was mine before he could try to take it. Then, I met with a divorce lawyer. Not local, I chose one in another city, someone completely outside our circle. I brought everything, Proof of the affair, the financial misconduct, the manipulation. She listened calmly and then laid out a strategy to protect me, legally, financially, step by step. What about emotionally? I asked. She peered over her glasses. That's not my department, but from experience, nothing heals a shattered heart faster than knowing you've shielded yourself from more damage. But I didn't just want protection. I wanted justice. So I got to work, methodically, obsessively. I backed up every text message between Ethan and Zoe. Screenshots, timestamps. I documented every restaurant, every hotel, every gift receipt. I archived emails from secret accounts they thought I'd never find. I even located the lease agreement for their hideaway apartment, signed by both of them. But the most damning clue came from someone completely unexpected. My mother. We were out to lunch when she casually brought up Zoe's upcoming art show. "It's a huge opportunity," she said cheerfully. "Even your dad's impressed, and you know how he feels about her so-called career." I sipped my iced tea, trying to stay composed. "That's great. Where's the show again?" "The Hartman Gallery. Ethan's been such a help, using his client connections to get her in. Such a supportive brother-in-law." I froze. Ethan's client, Mitchell Hartman, owned that gallery. The same client Ethan had been trying to land for nearly a year. That account was his golden ticket to a promotion, partner-level prestige at his firm. And suddenly everything clicked. Zoe wasn't just in bed with my husband. She was using him to advance her career. And Ethan wasn't just betraying our marriage. He was jeopardizing his professional ethics, blurring business and personal boundaries for mutual gain. This exhibit wasn't just a milestone for Zoe. It was the approval she'd chased from our father her entire life. And for Ethan? Securing Hartman meant validation, status. It was everything he had worked for since the day we met. That night, I made a phone call to Rebecca, an old college friend who now worked at the Boston Chronicle. We'd kept in touch over the years, grabbing coffee every few months. I went to her wedding. She sent condolences when my grandmother passed. "Rebecca, it's Nina," I said. "I've got a story you might want to look into." I didn't spill all the details, just that I had evidence of unethical conduct tied to the upcoming Hartman exhibit, a conflict of interest that compromised both the gallery and the artist being showcased. "Send me what you've got," she replied, voice sharp with curiosity. "If it checks out, I'll run it." I scheduled the email to deliver that coming Sunday morning, the same day I was hosting family dinner at our house. It was meant to celebrate Ethan's anticipated partnership. Both families had been invited. But now, that dinner would serve a much different purpose. The final puzzle piece locked into place when the private investigator called. "Miss Carter, I verified your request. They're meeting tomorrow at the apartment. Based on the last 2 months of patterns, they'll be there from 2 to 5 p.m. Perfect. Ethan thought I'd be away at a corporate team-building retreat. Zoe believed I'd be escorting our mom to her eye specialist. Instead, I'd be staging the final act. As I ended the call, a strange calm settled over me. It wasn't joy. I doubted I'd feel that again anytime soon. But it was power. The kind that comes when you realize you're not behind, but 10 steps ahead of people who assumed you were clueless. They'd been playing chess, convinced I was still stuck at checkers. But they were wrong. The game wasn't over yet. Sunday arrived warm and glowing, the kind of early summer day that once would have filled me with peace. I spent the morning cooking an extravagant dinner. Ethan's favorite, herb-roasted lamb. Zoe's weakness, lemon tart with almond crust. And the side dishes? My mother's treasured recipes. I set the dining table with our wedding china and crystal stemware, each glass catching the light and scattering tiny prisms across the white linen cloth. It was a scene that screamed domestic bliss, right before the storm. My parents were first to arrive. Dad brought the vintage Bordeaux he'd been saving for a milestone. Mom fussed over the floral centerpiece I'd arranged from her garden. My brother Jackson and his wife came in next, apologizing for running late due to traffic. Ethan, ever the actor, was in the kitchen playing helpful husband, oblivious that, come tomorrow, his keys wouldn't fit the front door lock. Zoe arrived last, pulling me into a sisterly hug that made my stomach twist. She wore a new designer dress, one I'd recognized from a boutique receipt in Ethan's inbox. She brought artisanal chocolates from a shop we'd discovered together on a sister's weekend years ago. You look incredible, she said brightly, her eyes flicking toward Ethan. This is so thoughtful of you. If only she knew. We gathered around the table, glasses raised. Ethan took the lead with a toast. To family, he said warmly, and to new beginnings. New beginnings, indeed. The meal flowed with rehearsed ease, praise for the food, casual family banter, harmless teasing between siblings. I wore the mask of hostess flawlessly. I laughed, topped off wine glasses, and passed around serving bowls, all while the tablet connected to our smart TV sat quietly on the buffet, loaded and queued. I glanced around the table one last time, letting the moment burn into my memory. Each familiar face, each smile, each clink of glass, soon it would all fracture. I felt like I was standing in the eye of a storm, calm but bracing for the break. This wasn't just a reveal, it was a reckoning, and I had curated every second of it with surgical precision. As the lemon tart hit the table, I rose and tapped my spoon against a crystal glass. Thank you all for coming, I began, my voice even, though my pulse roared in my ears. As you know, we're here to celebrate Ethan's upcoming promotion, something he's worked very hard for. Ethan smiled, reaching across the table to take my hand. I let him. But before we raise our glasses to future success, I continued, I thought it might be meaningful to reflect on the road that brought us here. I picked up the remote and pressed play. The TV came to life. It started simple. Wedding photos, holiday snapshots, family vacations, scenes that made my mother sigh and my father nod with approval. Then the tone changed. This past year has been revealing, I said. Up came a screenshot of the first incriminating text between Ethan and Zoe, the one where they joked about sneaking around while I was caring for our mom. Silence blanketed the room. Then came the surveillance photos. Ethan and Zoe entering their apartment, kissing on the street, holding hands in the elevator, receipts, wire transfers, the shared lease agreement for their secret hideaway. Each slide cut deeper than the last. Nina, what is this? Ethan asked, his voice choked, the color draining from his face. I didn't look at him. I simply kept narrating. I've also learned a lot about professional ethics, particularly related to the upcoming show at the Hartman Gallery. Now it was Zoe's turn to panic. Nina, stop. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I cut in, my voice calm, almost too calm. I understand that while I was building a life with my husband and supporting my sister's dreams, the two of you were tearing it all apart behind my back. The screen displayed the next item, an email I had sent the night before to Mitchell Hartman, outlining how his gallery was being exploited in an unethical quid pro quo, Zoe's feature in exchange for Ethan's client access. His response was projected next. This exhibition is cancelled, effective immediately. I'm severing all ties with both individuals. Zoe made a guttural noise. Her big break? Gone. The next slide showed another email, this one addressed to Ethan's firm, providing clear evidence of how he had breached client trust for personal motives. The managing partner's reply was short and brutal. We need to discuss your future with the firm. Meeting set for Monday, 9 a.m. Ethan shot up, knocking his wine glass to the floor. You had no right. I had every right, I snapped. Years of buried rage erupted in my voice. You slept with my sister in our bed. You planned to walk away with half of everything I built. You gaslit me, made me question my own instincts while you plotted behind my back. My mother covered her mouth, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. My father sat motionless, his jaw clenched. My brother Jackson's fists were balled tightly at his sides, glaring at Ethan like he was seconds away from lunging. I turned to Zoe. And you, my own sister? The one I defended, supported, funded. Was it worth it? Was ruining me worth whatever petty thrill you got from stealing what was mine? For the first time, her face showed actual shame. Not panic, not fear of being caught. Shame. Nina, I'm so sorry. Save it, I cut her off flatly. Your art career in Boston is finished. That email went to every gallery director in the city. The article drops tomorrow. Your names aren't in it yet. That'll depend on how you both handle what's next. I reached beneath the sideboard and pulled out a large manila envelope, placing it gently on the table. Divorce papers, I said, turning to Ethan. Drawn up by my lawyer. Sign them, agree to my terms, and I won't pursue a formal complaint into your professional misconduct. Then I placed a second envelope beside Zoe's plate. This is a legal agreement. You'll waive any inheritance rights from our parents' estate, equivalent to every cent I spent putting you through school, through rehab, through everything. With interest. Sign it, and I won't make your betrayal public. I won't ruin you socially." Ethan lurched forward. "You vindictive." Jackson stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. He stepped between us, eyes fixed on Ethan. "I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you," he said coldly. My father finally spoke, and his voice was low but firm. "Zoe," he said, "is it true? You and Ethan?" She couldn't even look at him. That was all the answer he needed. "I think," my mother said shakily, "that both of you need to leave. Now." In that moment, something shifted. For the first time, my family didn't look at me with pity or confusion. They stood with me. The sister who'd always been adored was now the black sheep. The beloved son-in-law was exposed as the fraud he truly was. As they collected their things, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a hollow sense of vindication. And the first flickers of freedom. I hadn't just revealed their betrayal, I'd taken back my power. Before they reached the door, I said one last thing. "You know what's really tragic? I would have done anything for either of you. Anything. And you threw it all away for something built entirely on lies." Once they were gone, my family surrounded me. I hadn't expected it. Jackson called his friend, a top-notch divorce attorney. My father offered financial backing if I needed it. And my mother? She simply held me. No words. Just steady arms as I finally let myself cry. The house of deception Ethan and Zoe built collapsed in less than half an hour. I was wounded, but standing. They weren't. 1 year later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the Boston skyline glow gold and pink as the sun sank behind it. From inside came the sounds of laughter. My parents, Jackson, and a few close friends celebrating my recent promotion. The wind kissed my cheeks as I stood there, letting the final warmth of the day settle into my skin. The soft clinking of glasses, the hum of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter, every sound reminded me I had rebuilt something from nothing. The divorce had been finalized 6 months earlier, smooth and swift, thanks to the bulletproof evidence I'd presented. Ethan lost his shot at partner. He salvaged his job after some serious reputation scrubbing, but eventually relocated to the Seattle branch, about as far from Boston as he could get without leaving the country. Zoe? She returned to Florence, officially to focus on her art, unofficially to avoid the aftermath. She sent me several long apology letters, which now sit, still sealed in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'll open them. Maybe I won't. My mother still talks to her now and then, but never pushes me. She understands that some wounds scar so deeply they reshape you forever. "Hey there, successful lady." Rebecca joined me on the balcony, champagne in hand. The same Rebecca who broke the gallery scandal wide open, honoring her word to keep names confidential. "What's on your mind?" I smiled and clinked my glass against hers. "Just thinking about how life reroutes you. You think you're headed one way, and then you're somewhere completely different," she finished. "Exactly," I said. "Different. Tougher, but more real. More mine." And that was the truth. The grief didn't vanish overnight. Sometimes I still felt it creep up, in the cereal aisle, reaching for Ethan's favorite brand, or flipping through old photos of me and Zoe, arms locked in childhood innocence. Those memories came like echoes, gentle, familiar, but no longer consuming. They were no longer chains, just shadows I could walk through. But those moments were rare now, softened by new joys, new milestones, new people who saw me, respected me, loved me for who I was. Yes, I finally got a therapist, a real one. Not because I was being manipulated, but because I deserved support. She told me trauma rewires your brain. You don't come out the same person on the other side. "You were before," my therapist once told me during a session, "but different doesn't mean diminished." And she was right. I wasn't diminished. I was refined, fortified in the places where I'd been broken. I'd kept the house in the divorce, but chose to sell it. I had no desire to live among the ghosts of betrayal. My new apartment was completely mine. Every inch decorated to reflect me. No compromises. No considering anyone else's style or opinion, just mine. My relationship with my parents deepened over that year. Our family dynamics evolved. I wasn't just the responsible older daughter anymore, the one quietly holding things together in the background. My father especially had shown me a softness I'd always longed for but never received when Zoe had been the family star. "Speech time?" Jackson called out from the living room, pulling me out of my thoughts. "The woman of the hour needs to say a few words." I laughed and stepped back inside, into the warmth of those who had stood by me through everything, people who'd proven themselves when it mattered most. These were my people now. Friends by choice, family forged in fire, colleagues who valued me for my contributions, not who pitied me for my past. As I raised my champagne glass, I caught a glimpse of myself reflected in the sliding glass door. Shoulders back, eyes bright, smile real. Not the strained, performative smile I used to wear during the final stretch of my marriage. This one was different. This one was earned. "Thank you all for being here," I said. "A year ago, I thought I was losing everything that mattered. Turns out, I was actually beginning to find what truly does." Later that night, after the last guest had left and the apartment had quieted, I stepped out onto the balcony again. The cool night breeze swept over me, clearing my mind. I reflected on everything, on what I'd lost, what I'd endured, and what I'd rebuilt. Some people would call what I did revenge. I called it justice. Justice not just for myself, but for anyone who'd ever been overlooked, discarded, or betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love them most. That's the cruel magic of betrayal. It forces you to make a choice. Do you let it destroy you? Or do you use it to uncover the power you never knew you had? I chose power. I chose myself. And in the quiet that followed the collapse, I found something completely unexpected: freedom. The kind that allows you to craft a life entirely on your own terms. No masks, no lies, no compromise. Dear friend, life doesn't always break us with earthquakes. Sometimes it chips away quietly, through silence, through slow betrayals, through moments we overlook because we love too much. But in the ruins, there's a chance to build something stronger. Not just stronger, truer. The Stoics teach us that what's outside our control is not our concern. What matters is how we respond. Nina didn't just endure betrayal, she used it as a forge. Her story isn't about revenge. It's about choosing dignity over despair, power over pity, self-respect over silence. And maybe that's what we're all called to do in some way. Choose ourselves. Even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. So if you're standing in your own wreckage, know this: strength isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and already inside you. Stand tall, even in your shadows. If this story moved you, let it move someone else too. Hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the strength we all carry.